A brief message to my students. I'm approaching 30 years of learning, teaching, and experiencing. The person speaking to you now isn't the child born many decades ago. I've lived a long life, and as many of you already know, I've witnessed much. But despite all this, I'm not claiming to be a master at anything. My life goal is and has always been to be an eternal seeker and learner. This desire is as strong now as it was during my youth. I began teaching myself how to learn through self-reflection, internalizing my relationship with the world. I can't take credit for creating this pathway. I've always loved studying world religions, and this theme of self-reflection seems to be universal in all religions. It was this way that I began to see myself in others, especially when traveling, even strangers. I hope that each of you will attempt some level of self-reflection in your daily lives. I've literally traveled the world: Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas. Everywhere I've traveled, I've sought out teachers and wise people. Now, early in my youth, and I'm being honest here, I judged the world from my lens of limited experience. But as the years passed, I began asking for advice from all these teachers and wise people. It's taken most of these decades, but I've slowly laid to rest many of my assumptions and prejudices. Many of you who've been my students will recall how often I've explained the importance of listening as a skill. Listening not only physically, using your eyes and ears, but employing your heart as a way of understanding the world you live in and the people you share it with. My travels and time in classrooms all over the world have taught me the value of seeking to understand over demanding to be understood. We're all unique, whether talking about people, nations, or cultures. However, we are also all the same. It may sound like a paradox, but it really isn't. So you see, it's these similarities that we've got to search for in order to be able to see ourselves through the eyes of others. Our differences complement one another and are the source of collective growth and community building. Anything outside of this search to understand only creates division, the antithesis of unification. Just as the beauty of Ghana's kente cloth is derived from its blend of colors, the beauty and richness of the world is a result of the diversity of people and cultures and civilizations. Can you imagine what an insanely boring, lifeless place this world would be if we all thought and acted the same? How would we ever grow if, as human beings, we thought there was nothing more to learn about anyone or anything else? In our troubled times, it's crucial that human beings prioritize our similarities over our differences while still honoring each individual's uniqueness. Sitting with and listening to others is way more fulfilling than arguing or forcing our point of view. Let me give you an example. For example, I once sat listening to an elder in an open-air market in Bamako, Mali, West Africa. He was selling chickens, and I was earning his time by cleaning up chicken poop. It's a long story for another time. But he turned to me at one point in our conversation and said, "There is your truth and my truth. They will never shake hands." The lesson I took away from this moment in my life was that each of us has to take a step away from our truth to understand another's truth. At this moment that I'm sharing these words with you, you are all quite literally living that ancient Chinese adage, "May you live in interesting times." You live in an age that is terrifying because of the threats posed to humanity, but exciting because of the opportunities it creates for gaining knowledge and establishing relationships globally. There's the potential for an incredible amalgam of diverse peoples, thoughts, and experiences never witnessed on this earth. Your generation will either guarantee the growth of this coming together or its eradication. We can no longer hide behind our ideologies or limited worldviews. You're living in an era of interdependence. Problems are no longer simply local. They've become global. We find ourselves inhabiting the same small, unstable house whose foundation needs shoring. Think for yourself. Wouldn't it be better to make an effort to understand each other and work together before it's too late? Whether we like it or not, humanity now functions much like the human body. Every element, regardless of its size, location, or ability, has specific duties to perform that affect the health of the whole. Partisan interests do not threaten, they have divided us. Out of necessity, you have got to gradually clear a path for the creation of a new way of thinking, focused on solidarity, both on a personal and a global level. This will be the precondition for peace, a necessity for human progress. Many traditional societies of the past were civilizations of accountability, driven by unification at every level. Now, I can only speak through my lived experience, but my understanding of these societies is that they never allowed the most vulnerable to dwell on the periphery of their interest. I have had these experiences myself as a stranger in the land of others. I've had everything from food to shelter offered to me by the most economically deprived among us. All human interaction should be governed by a shared concept of community and open-mindedness. Over these decades, I've come to understand that each of us is defined by our word. Our words are sacred. I've seen words build monuments to humanity. I've witnessed words destroy civilizations. Understanding the power words may act as a preventative to disunion. Coming together to discuss will always be our most powerful medium of exchange. Gathering with the intention of creating peace gives birth to a beautiful tomorrow. Human beings create and advance societies only during times of peace. Conflict destroys, in a matter of seconds, what may have taken centuries to build. Most traditional cultures made themselves accountable for maintaining the harmony of the environment. I was once in Gambia, West Africa, some decades ago, working with a man who was making me a musical instrument. We walked together out into a forest, and he approached a tree and began talking to it, asking it permission to part with some of its larger limbs to create my instrument. It's taken me all of these decades to truly understand what was happening that day. Among many traditional societies, killing an animal or cutting down a tree was prohibited without justification. To these people, the earth was a precious object that the Creator had entrusted to them. Instead, they saw themselves as mere custodians. When we take a moment to think about the indifference with which contemporary human beings deplete the earth's resources and destroy its delicate equilibrium, the way many cultures of the past thought and engaged assumes greater significance. I don't want to romanticize history. All societies have their defects, their excesses, and their shortcomings. This moment with you, and by the way, thank you for watching and listening. This moment is, I guess, a plea to allow harmful traditions to die the death they are meant to, but uphold those traditions we deem honorable. Each generation is like a gardener, and human life is like a huge tree. Instead of uprooting, a smart gardener knows how to clip the dead branches when the time comes and, if necessary, graft valuable additions. Cutting the roots would be suicide. It would mean giving up one's unique identity to adopt that of someone else's. While in Mali many years ago, I learned a Bamana proverb. It goes like this. Roughly translated, it says, a piece of wood may float in the water for 100 years, but it will never become a crocodile. I guess the point I'm attempting to make here is, and not as elegantly as I'd like, is that I would like each of you to think of yourselves as that good gardener, someone who understands that a tree requires strong roots to grow. If you can adopt this role as an aspect of your personality, then you will be prepared to open yourself up to the outside world and be a giver as well as a receiver. Most of you know that in our classroom discussions, I always talk about the importance of tools, life tools. I would never send you out into the world without first handing you the tools necessary to do the difficult work. There are two tools that I think are essential. The first is language. Language is so much more than simply a way of communicating. Within languages are keys to unlocking and understanding another's culture. You don't need to master languages to gain a depth of understanding. My path through unlocking cultural understanding has been to not simply engage the rules of grammar, spelling, and pronunciation, but also the customs and values of a people. A second tool I found invaluable is something I spoke of earlier: self-reflection. The capacity to go within, deep within one's own understanding of self opens up an immense understanding of others. And I'll close with these thoughts. There are times in your life when you're going to feel overwhelmed. You will even question your capacity to meet the needs of the moment. I beg of you that in these moments, show yourself the grace you're capable of showing others. Understand that these moments, these feelings, and these thoughts are all temporary. Take comfort in the care and understanding others are willing to offer you. Trust your intuition and remember the old proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, then travel together. Your purpose is our purpose, and our lives are worth living. You define your worth in this world, nobody else. Doni doni, kunoni benyagada.